Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Hot Toys figure unboxing and review video. Now today, finally we're going to be taking a look at none other than the life-size Grogu, aka the child, based off his appearance in The Mandalorian. I couldn't be more excited. I've been waiting for this guy, along with pretty much most of you out there, just to see if he's as good, or if not, better than the Sideshow collectibles version, which has been out for some time now. And before we begin, I do want to let you know that I picked up mine from toyswonderland.com. A link for that is of course in the description below. He's in stock and ready to ship right now, and they do have 12-month installment plans if you're a fan of paying off your figures over time. Also, while you are down there, why not hit that subscribe and bell notification icon so you're notified as soon as brand new content goes live on the channel. What we are going to do now though is get the box laying flat in the light box and do the unboxing. And here of course we have the box art for Grogu himself. You do have an image of the figure right up here on the front of the box, the usual Star Wars lettering. In fact, this box art design is pretty much par for the course with what we've seen for other Hot Toys Star Wars pieces. But one of the cool things about this box art is the fact that this is a slipcover, and when you remove it, you get a really awesome hover pram style motif. It's dirty, it's worn, it's nasty. You can see on the side some orange detail, just like the hover pram itself. Now in order to get the child Grogu out, you do just lift up the top, and then you can remove the inner plastic container. It's a little bit cumbersome to do because Grogu does weigh a little bit. In fact, I do believe this Grogu is heavier than the Sideshow collectibles version. Don't worry, you will be seeing comparisons, of course, throughout the course of this video. Now let's get him out here. I have been eagerly awaiting his arrival ever since we saw some of the early prototype pictures and the in-person pictures by Hot Toys. I have to say, first impressions are pretty positive. He does have some substantial weight, which is surprising because the Sideshow one was quite light. You can also see that he does have super reflective glossy eyes. More on that later in the video. But as you can see, he does have some accessories down below in the second tray. So what we are going to do now is get all of this stuff laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything he comes with. And here we have all of the accessories that come with Grogu. Let's start off by taking a look at the display base first. Usually with the bigger format stuff, like of course the Hulk and the life-size baby Groot, we don't get display bases, but I'm glad for Grogu here they made an exception. We've seen this shape of display base before. It's this diamond style display base. In fact, Infinity War Thanos came with one, but this one has an added height piece that's over the top that extends it a little bit taller here. You can see this metal grate effect. It isn't unfortunately painted. There's no weathering or chipping to make this look like metal, but he will be sitting or standing and covering 95% of this anyway, so for me, that's perfectly fine. You can see a beautiful metal Star Wars the Child nameplate on the front there. Unfortunately, it doesn't say Grogu. I would have loved for them to have printed that on there, or at least give us a swap out option. But I get it, this is Grogu based on his Season 1 appearance, so that's why they didn't do it. Now you can see a clear acrylic rod. There is no crotch grabber. This actually inserts into the figure himself, which keeps him really nice and stable, but I would have preferred a regular crotch grabber. Now he does come with this piece, which is of course the necklace that Mando gives him. It's a Beskar mythosaur skull, and it looks really good. It's nicely painted, but unfortunately, it's not made of metal. I was really hoping that this piece was going to be a proper tactile prop that was made out of metal, but unfortunately it isn't. It's still well done, but for me personally, I was expecting metal. It does have this real pleather style strap here, which of course can be used for Grogu to wear this, or he can just hang onto it. Plus, if you're doing a Mando cosplay, you could technically wear that yourself. Now he does come with the Razor Crest shift knob. This, in contrast to the Sideshow one, is a little bit smaller. Plus the silver paint is slightly darker, leaning towards gunmetal rather than silver. The blue line has been swapped out for a black one, and the top actually looks like a depressible button, but of course it isn't. On the bottom, this is the biggest difference. You can see an actual threaded section that looks like this can be screwed on to the shift lever, whereas the Sideshow one is an exposed magnet. So yes, I was complaining about that in the Sideshow review, and Hot Toys fixed it for theirs. Now it does still have a magnet on the inside that only works on this hand. It's a slightly weak magnet, mind you, so if you do knock it, it will come falling out, but at the very least it does have the same functionality as the Sideshow version. Now let's take a look at the paint applications on some of the hands. They're exceptional. You can see a beautiful skin texture all the way down to some subtle rosiness on the inside of the palms, and the nails are suitably dirty and a little bit nasty as well. The final pieces he does come with are of course his interchangeable ears. A big point of contention for a lot of people because of course those seams will be visible. You'll see them in just a second. They're also a relatively sturdy material. There's a slight flex to them, but they're nowhere near as soft as the actual head of Grogu himself. You can also see some pink on the inside here, but unfortunately no hair whatsoever on the back. But either way, they do swap on, and you do have some options when you're displaying your Grogu. What we are going to do now, though, is get the child himself out here and take a closer look. And here we have him standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. And I have to say, well, that's Grogu. It does what it says on the tin. It's a life-size version of the child, aka Baby Yoda. I really like the way this one looks. Granted, I like the Sideshow version as well, and you'll see how they stack up side by side later in the video, but for now, just know that, yeah, he looks pretty darn impressive. Hot Toys did a really good job, as I always knew they were going to. You can't really release a life-size child and it not be good, otherwise you'll be in for a world of trouble, and I think Hot Toys knew that. That's why this guy took slightly longer than I personally was hoping he was going to. I was hoping he would come out towards the earlier to mid-half of Season 2 of The Mandalorian, when the hype was really high, but unfortunately he didn't. Nevertheless, no point talking about all that now. He's here, and he looks really, really good. He's not 100% flawless, though, and you'll find out what I mean in just a second, but for now, just know that standing in front of me, he looks really darn impressive. What we are going to do now, though, is take him off the rotating turntable, punch in, and take a closer look at the details. And here we have him up close and personal, and I have to say, this guy looks absolutely spectacular. I was wary at first, as we all were, when we saw him in person at Secret Base. The lighting was way too harsh. He looked absolutely horrendous and kind of creepy, and while he still does have a little bit of a creepy vibe, because it does look incredibly realistic, I'm still loving how he comes across. Now, talking about the head sculpt first, the paint applications are sublime. For those of you who are worried about the rosiness of the cheeks, it's here once again. It was on the original puppet, so I don't know if you will be able to remove it like some people were doing on the Sideshow version, but for me, I'm fine with it. It does look quite sharp and very strong through the camera lens, but in person it doesn't look all that bad. Now let's talk about something that a lot of people were complaining about. It's the ear seam. So in order to facilitate the swappable ear gimmick, there is of course a seam. It's not ideal. Granted, I would have liked a wire armature going through the ear so you could just pivot it down, but they didn't do that. They went for the swap out gimmick. Yes, it's a little bit unsightly, but trust me, it's hidden well enough when you're looking at him front on that most of the time they kind of just look like wrinkles and you won't see them. That's by no means me making excuses for the seam line. It's definitely there, but for me personally, it's not the biggest deal in the world. Now you can see he does have a lot of properly punched in hair, but for some reason on the back of the ears, it's just not there. In the show, there is some wispy white hair on his ears. Maybe they didn't do it so that when you are swapping the ears out, you don't pull out the hairs accidentally. Now he does have a cute little gimmick, which is of course, he can open his mouth. There is some magnificent painted detail in there, including the tongue, although for me, I probably will just leave his mouth closed, and you can get a significant overbite, just like in the show. Now, let's talk about the robe itself. For some reason, for me personally, the robe is slightly too clean. I don't really like how it comes across. There's a subtle weathering, but it's kind of coming across like a few mustard stains on his outfit there. Not really like dirt and grime, especially down the bottom. You can see a little bit of a blackwash and some speckling, but by and large, it is relatively clean, especially on the undersleeve sections right there. So yes, for those of you out there who are into customizing, you can really go to town and get this thing to look as dirty and grimy as you like. Now I can't really feel any wires whatsoever in the collar. It's a little bit unfortunate because you do want to be able to pose this upper section like you can do on the Sideshow one, but for me I haven't really been able to get any posability whatsoever out of the outfit itself. Now let's talk about the hands and the way they swap out. It's very simple. It's literally just a regular peg. You push the hands in. The hands themselves are really nicely detailed. There's a skin texture, there's some rosiness to the inside of the palm there, which is really cute, and you do have some very nicely painted, nasty looking nails. Finally, down here at the feet, same thing on the bottom, you do have some nice rosy skin, and on the legs themselves, before they get to the regular solid plastic, they're also really nicely painted. There's an awesome skin texture, they look very, very realistic. Now I will let you know towards the end of the video which version of Grogu I do prefer, but just know at this point in the video, I am leaning towards the Hot Toys figure. I don't exactly know what it does 100% better than the Sideshow one just yet until we do the side-by-side comparison, but just seeing him in front of me right here, something about it is just working for me. Let me know what you think of the Hot Toys figure so far down in the comments below. Now for our quick side-by-side comparison, here we have the Sideshow child on the left compared to the Hot Toys child on the right. Now, while there are some similarities, these two fundamentally are very different items. One, being the Sideshow one, is a fixed statue. It's in a static pose. Granted, you can swivel the head side to side, but unlike the Hot Toys one, it's not fully articulated. So if you are looking for a fully articulated figure, well then, case closed. The Hot Toys one is for you, whereas if you're looking for a statue, the Sideshow one is for you. But for a lot of us, it's not that simple. It goes a little bit deeper. Let's talk about some of the key differences, being of course the fact that the Sideshow one was made in collaboration with Legacy Effects. Some people confuse that by thinking, oh okay, well then that means it was made from the original molds. Absolutely not the case. It was made with the company who made the original molds, but they were brand new molds for this specific item. Does that mean it's more or less accurate than the Hot Toys one? Well, it's going to have to be up to you. But for me personally, I'm leaning towards the Hot Toys release when it comes to the face and the paint applications. Then again, you do have the seams for the ears, but that affords more swappability in terms of the ear expressions. And then you do have the openable jaw on the Hot Toys release as well. So it's going to have to be up to you once again whether or not that seam down the side of the face does deter you enough for you to have to go for a static release. Also, the Sideshow one is perpetually looking up, so unless you're having him on a lower shelf, it kind of always looks like he's looking up to the sky. It's cool if you're doing a Mando cosplay like I've done, and you can have him walking alongside you, looking up at you, but if you want him on a higher shelf, he's going to be sort of looking upwards and you'll see the underside of his chin. Also, for some reason, on the Sideshow robes, you can see this weird sort of cutout towards the bottom where it sort of juts up and you can see straight underneath, whereas on the Hot Toys one, it's completely flat, as it should be. It's always been quite perplexing as to why they did that for the Sideshow robe, but then again, it's painted better and the wires are a lot stronger in the collar. I did manage to find the wire in the Hot Toys collar, but it's on the inside and it's not all that articulatable. If you did want to potentially swap the robes between the two, you could make yourself an ultimate child figure, but for me personally, I'm still leaning towards the Hot Toys release even with its shortcomings, just because it does a few key things better than the Sideshow version. And here we have them slightly closer up because I did want to compare the head sculpts side by side. It's quite challenging to wrangle both of these big-eared little guys on camera, but trust me, seeing them in person, the paint applications on the Hot Toys figure are just a lot better. The Sideshow one still looks really good, don't get me wrong, but I love the skin texture and the added detail, especially in the eyes, on the Hot Toys release. Just going over articulation on Grogu. Now bear in mind, this is my personal copy of the figure, so I'm going to be a little bit more careful. I'm sure when you get yours in hand, you can push the joints slightly further than I'm willing to go. Now starting off with the head sculpt itself, this has by far the biggest range of motion on this entire figure. As you can see, forward, back, swivel and pivot side to side are really no issue whatsoever. You do also have an articulated jaw, which is a super nice touch, something that honestly they didn't have to do, but I'm really glad they did it. Now the arms themselves don't move a hell of a lot at the upper joint, at the shoulder. They go forward to about there, they go out just a teeny bit, but you will get a significant range at the elbow. You do have a quite solid single bend and a swivel at the wrist. The legs themselves are actually connected via a ball joint up there in the socket, so they go forward and they also go slightly out. You do also have a swivel down at the foot itself. Just wrapping up on the Hot Toys child, aka Grogu. I think personally, in my own opinion, and by no means do you have to agree with me, that this guy is better than the Sideshow version. By all means, I'm still going to be keeping my Sideshow figure, but for a fully posable, fully articulated version of Grogu, this is the winner. I love the head sculpt, I love the fact that you can open the mouth. That is one key core gimmick that I really do connect with. I like it a lot. Plus the swappable ears are a huge plus. Would I have preferred there to be an armature on the inside of the ear which allowed articulation but didn't need to be swapped out? Absolutely. Are the gaps on the sides of the face a huge distracting eyesore that ruins the entire piece for me? No, absolutely not. I think people have blown it way out of proportion. I think they don't honestly look all that bad whatsoever. From the front, they kind of just look like more wrinkles, and I think that's what they were going for. But overall, I'm really impressed with the paint applications, the sculpt, and even the robes. Even though they are slightly cleaner than I personally would have liked, I'd like them to be a little bit dirtier. But hey, you can always make them dirtier, you can't necessarily make them cleaner, so at least we can dirty this guy up if that's something we'd like to do, like a lot of people have done for their Sideshow version. Plus, if you're getting this one, you don't have to go to all that effort to modify it and make it articulated. He can already move right out of the box. Plus, the accessories are better than the Sideshow figure. You've got the accurate shift knob, and you do have the Beskar Mythosaur skull pendant. By all means, I'm not trying to talk down the Sideshow one. I still really like it, as I said. But this one, for me, gets my vote. If anyone's going to be asking me, hey Justin, which version of the life-size child should I get? I'll be telling them 100% of the time, pick up the Hot Toys release. You will not be disappointed. If you are looking to pick up your very own, he's in stock right now with toyswonderland.com. A link for that is of course in the description below. Also, while you're down there, why not check out the link to 6 Scale Network, the awesome Facebook group. Come along, chat figures, share photos of your collection, and of course, see what's coming up next on the channel. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.